saying that says if you're not growing, you're slowly dying. And
Yeah.
I do believe that, because the market is, even if you're perfectly still and you're doing everything you've always done, the market is moving.
Yeah.
You know, everything is orbiting around, whether it's the regulator or,
Yeah.
you know, the consumer or, you know, SMEs. It's never in a steady state. Hey, it's Julian. We're back for another episode of Lost and Founders, and I've got a very unique, very special guest all the way from across the ditch today. And I'm here with...
Oh, yes, I'm Matt. I'm from FunTap. This is nervous, very first podcast ever. But yeah, it's great to be here. Fantastic to fly on over today to be with you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm really excited to unpack this because, you know, obviously heard about you guys through Claire, and then, you know, obviously great to finally meet in person. We've had interactions across your team and different positions within your team, and we're obviously in New Zealand now as well as a business, so
that's cool.
This was destined to happen. There's a lot of things we need to unpack because your background is quite extraordinary, really. It's very different to, you know, many of the other people that maybe came from a traditional banking, financial services background and then ended up in a funder or a lender or, you know, some kind of product that's servicing the industry. Tell us about your story, your background, your career trajectory, everything, sort of all the milestones, and then how you completely transitioned to a totally different industry.
Yeah, it's just all sort of happenstance and accident, really. So I trained as a scientist. So I went through school. I was always sort of that smartest in your class, but quite lazy.
Yeah.
So I was one of those really annoying people who'd just be able to smash out tests. You never had to really do any study. So all your friends hated you. There's a bit of a comeuppance to that because you do get a little bit complacent. You think that's value as you sort of go along. But anyway, I went down a path of science. Just absolutely loved it. Like I love, especially just discovering the world, you know, how things work, all that sort of side of things. Had a very sort of black and white brain, right, wrong, all that sort of side, very simplistic. And I just loved getting to the heart of what makes things tick. So I ended up going to university. I went to Dunedin, so a lot of people wouldn't know that, but it's at so I lived at the very top of New Zealand, so up in Whangarei. And Dunedin was the furthest to get away and still be in New Zealand, so I went all the way down there. Great university town, and you sort of went there. It's a great science university, but really went there for the lifestyle. Just got into the science, ended up doing a PhD. So I did my PhD in microbiology and immunology. I remember sitting outside the registry building in my second year with my friend deciding what I was going to do, and ended up flipping a coin, and that's what it came up. So that's what I ended up doing. And absolutely loved it, you know. So especially as you go through your degree and you're just learning and lectures and all that. But then by the time you get to do your PhD, you're sort of handed the reins and given a problem, and then just told to go and solve it, to go and fix it, go and work out everything around it. And that's something I definitely loved. Just loved being able to sort of it was all on you, you know. Yeah. So you had, and I had two very fantastic supervisors, but it was on you to make sure that it all sort of happened. You were responsible for it. You had to come up with some cool ideas. You had to bounce it off with supervisors. Had to go and work everything out. So just absolutely loved the science sort of piece. Had a few opportunities to go overseas. Didn't really want to. I'd be living in somewhere like Memphis for 30 years or so, and that didn't really excite me too much. Really do like New Zealand, the whole sort of the lifestyle in and around it.
It's a beautiful country. I mean, if I didn't live in Australia, I would live in New Zealand 100%. It's a beautiful country. It's similar in a lot of ways, but I mean, it's just like, depending on where you are, it's picturesque. But like even the crazy thing is, like, even if you're in Auckland and you drive 30 minutes out of town, like hills like that are so big that just come right up to the road, and cows grazing like, you know, meters away from your car. Like it looks like everywhere just looks like the Lord of the Rings set,
It sort of is. I do absolutely love it. I do love that sort of whole Australian, New Zealand sort of that culture, that sort of beach sort of things. Like one of the things that we have is that over Christmas, businesses just goes flat for a bit, and I sort of love it because everyone's at the beach, in both countries. That's the sort of side of things. Just absolutely love and I sort of wanted to have my cake and eat it too. So I really wanted the sort of really move things in science and say in New Zealand. That's actually quite a difficult thing to do. There are definitely people who do. So I got out and I ended up we did an OE overseas, then came back and ended up going to Wellington, and I was working for the National Influenza Centre there. And it was good, and we ended up getting government funding, and we ended up doing a few different things. But as you get higher in science, quite often what you end up doing is less of the science and more of the grant writing and that sort of things. And I didn't really like that. And at the same time, I'd had this burning itch for ages to do my own thing, to own my own business for no other reason than to own your own business. And I just thought, because then it was all on you. You didn't have you weren't beholden on your boss thinking that you were really good, or if it all went pear-shaped, it went tits up, it was on you. If it went really well, it was on you. All the responsibility was sitting there. So it always just had this real itch to own a business. And a few different things happen in life, and so it's always those sort of things that the real tough times happen, and that it sort of forces you to move. And so we ended up moving to Nelson. That was the opportunity to get into finance, to own my own business. Finance, the only reason at that stage was because I was sitting there going, well, I could, we grew up relatively poor, so I wanted to make some money. And I thought, well, instead of having money for hours, there's only so many hours that you've got. I'll make money. And that was the simplicity of the thinking. How hard can it be? And so got into that, got into invoice finance. And invoice finance isn't that well known in Australia and New Zealand, but even less so in New Zealand as well.
It's surprising to me how little people know about the products and how many of them could have so many of their problems solved from the product. And it's actually, in most cases, a much more cost-effective way to fund or get funding for their business. And it's about unlocking your receivables ledger, essentially. If you've got, like any given point in time, we could have 400K on our receivables ledger, in our business. And it's like, that's a lot of money that people owe you, and that need to, and you've got people that you need to pay, and it's hard. Getting paid on time is one of the most important things in business, and it strains relationships. It's a difficult thing to manage cash flow, but a lot of people, when you explain that product or you say, have you considered this or whatever, they have no idea the product exists.
No, and that I'd never heard of it beforehand as well when we first came to it. So we actually came to it was a franchise, a weird sort of way to come into it, and so learnt about it. And you're exactly right. No one has any idea that it's sort of there. And even if you do, it's usually used for sort of medium-sized businesses and up. And when we started doing it, there was the ones that really needed it with small businesses, the micro to small businesses, because they've got such a big cash flow problem. They're always beholden to like larger debtors and payers and all that sort of side. But just the way that it was, because it's so onerous on an admin sort of side of things, it wasn't available to small businesses. So the ones that needed it the most, it wasn't available for. And so that's where we sort of came around FunTap to actually think, well, actually, if we completely change the product up, if we use technology to make this better, so you don't have to spend all your time actually getting the invoice finance, it's solving the problem, which is just having cash in your bank to do what you do best. That's that sleep at night money, making sure that your business actually runs. And so that's where came to us thinking there just must be a better way of doing it. And again, just being pig-headed and knowing nothing, I thought, well, how hard can it be? And so then went to go find developers. Like, I have no idea around how to do software development and all that sort of side, but it's just trying to work out who would be able to do it. So went around New Zealand, and essentially if they had capability, they didn't have capacity. If they had capacity, didn't have capability. And just kept on going further and further afield until we found the developers that we use, and we've now used them for years, like more than a decade. But again, it's just trying to you've got a problem and you're ignorant, and so you just try to find a way to solve it. And it's just chasing it down and making sure that you can. And that's sort of how FunTap was born.
Yeah, amazing. And so you sort of go through all this process, and software is not cheap to develop. And a lot of people always they underestimate how long it's going to take. They underestimate how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And they overestimate their ability to execute
Yep.
it to perfection, you know? So tell me about some of the sort of trials and tribulations of going down that journey, that technology journey.
Oh, you just described it all just there. So when, like, again, just ignorant enough that thinking, so the first piece was actually just to try and get the front end, you know, so what the customer sees, and there's just a couple of screens. And so we had someone developing that, and that probably took about 6 months, and then it all fell apart because the first developer, he was a lone wolf sort of side of things, and it all, you know, I think he's going through relationship problems, and so ended up like knocking on his door and being in his boxes and trying to pull him out to, you know, get it done, and then so found the developers that we've got now. But even then I was ignorant enough to think when we launched that would be it. Like, you know, there would be, we're done and dusted, how much more can there be? And of course, we've never had, that was the least amount of software development we've ever had to do. You know, it just gets bigger and bigger. But then what you also go and realise is that all the cool things you can do with it, like you just get more and more efficient. You get, you know, you're able to do better and cooler stuff all the time. So, you know, you get to this level and you go, man, we could do this.
Yeah.
And that's the real exciting piece. But yeah, they completely underestimated the level of software development. Like that would be the sort of heart, the core of what we do, and the whole idea is to just make it easier and easier for our customers to solve their problem, and then for ourselves is just making it more and more efficient so that we don't have to keep on throwing bodies at it, and so the people that we do have, they do more interesting work. They, you know, they're not having to just do repetitive business as usual stuff. And so that's been a real exciting journey, but yeah, just had no idea about it at the start.
What do you notice the differences between the Australian market and the New Zealand market? Because, you know, in a lot of ways there are a lot of similarities, but what are the key differences you notice between two things? One, the sort of the industry, the financial services industry, and then separately, like small to medium business owners. Like, what are the problems they face different, or?
Yeah, I think the problems are pretty much the same. There's definitely a difference in Australian and New Zealand businesses, just in the culture. So Australians are a bit more brash, sort of go get there. New Zealand's is a little bit more polite, a little bit sort of a bit more reserved as it sort of comes. But again, they've got exactly the same problem. So again, around that cash flow piece, so many businesses have that cash flow piece, especially as they're growing, and that's what we sort of see is that you always. It's an untold opportunity cost because you don't have the money in your bank to actually, you know, bring on someone to actually go and get that new contract or so. And so, very, very similar businesses, although slightly different culture, but again, quite similar. When it comes to the industry itself, especially in invoice finance, it's more well known in Australia. There's many more competitors in Australia, but again, there's no one down at that lower level, that, you know, that micro to small business that's actually serving that part of the market. It's all quite a lot higher. So we have a lot of referral agreements between other invoice financiers, because if it's their customer, it's too big for us, and if it's if it's our customer, it's too small for them. And so there's basically no crossover as it goes, and that's where we love to be, is in that bit, like, you know, with the real small businesses that are, you know, they're quite often new businesses, they're quite often growing businesses, but it's those sort of businesses that just need that little bit of extra cash in order to just get over that little hump and actually go and take that opportunity to actually grow their business and keep on going. So that's where we love to play. Yeah.
Perfect. And you know, there's probably moments where you thought, I shouldn't have left, you know, because you were doing some amazing stuff. So you were working on like research for cancer vaccines, right?
Yeah,
like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So you just brushed over that like it was nothing. But, you know.
Yeah. So what I used to do for the PhD was we're using rabbit calicivirus, so it's a deadly virus for rabbits. And in New Zealand, there's a big rabbit problem. There was down in the South Island, and so we actually brought it from Australia. And so farmers illegally introduced it into New Zealand to decimate the rabbit population. Unfortunately, they just get resistant and off they go. But you'd have these little virus shells, and you know, because it's a virus, it excites the immune system. So your immune system is basically built to go, that's foreign, this is not good, and then kick into gear. Yeah. And so what we're using those little viral shells and then tacking little bits of tumour onto the outside. Yeah. And so then it would excite your immune system against the tumour, because the problem with cancer is that the cancer is you, and your whole body is designed to not attack you. And so what we're trying to do is use that virus to overcome that tolerance, so, to actually start attacking the bits of cancer at you. So it's quite a difficult thing. It's attack the bad bits of you, the cancer, not everything else. And so, that was it was actually great fun. I mean, it sounds real dorky, but I loved all that sort of side of things. It was really successful, and it's still ongoing to this day. I've obviously jumped out of it for quite a while.
Yeah. Do you keep tabs on all the stuff? Like, obviously, people listening, like, everyone I know has had, tragic loss in their family to cancer and things like that. And there's certainly some more modern approaches as well. Like, there's chemotherapy. That process hasn't changed for 30 plus years, 40 plus years, longer. Yeah. And, there's some people getting like good results at slowing things down and stuff. But, what's sort of where are things up to now? Like, when do you think it's realistic for us to see some?
I'm certainly not an expert, but so the whole thing that we were looking at, this is quite early on, was around actually the role that the immune system has to play when it comes to tumour. And so it's certainly not an expert in any way now, but you can see some of the immune modulating drugs that are starting to, it used to be just chemotherapy, and now you've got like Keytruda and all these other sort of ones, which are, again, they're just turning little switches in the immune system just on, and that's just enough for some people to actually be able to overcome the cancer. So it's been quite satisfying to see that there has been such a big movement towards these immunomodulating drugs, which was really the hypothesis that we had at that time, but way earlier than sort of was really well accepted. And so I think now that there's been that sort of almost that breakthrough, then of course everyone sort of jumps on and goes, that's a really valid way to go and do it. So more dollars is thrown into it, and more and greater. And it definitely seems that it's been a step change in the way that we treat tumours or treat cancer. And I don't know, I think it's one of those sort of ones, known a few people who have had cancer scares and the like, and it's almost like the longer they can hold out, it's changing at a relatively rapid pace, then the more of a chance you have that something else is going to be coming onto the market that actually is going to work for yourself.
Yeah, I do think that. I'm optimistic that they will find some things. As obviously, concerns about the incentive structures of these pharmaceutical companies and things like that. And you would have seen that writing grants, and there's a little bit of like what appears to be shady business that occurs, and I think that turns a lot of people off, thinking, we're never going to see that. But I genuinely think there are still good people in the field that are trying to solve these problems.
Well, it's funny because especially when COVID came around, and there's this whole sort of anti-vaccine sort of movement coming from a vaccinologist. Like there's the pharmaceutical industry, and I mean, again, I'm not the expert to go into this, but there's a lot. It comes down to a lot of money, sort of side of things. Yeah. But everyone working in that industry, there's no conspiracies, there's nothing else. Like they're literally they're good people who are driving towards a purpose, which is, again, especially for someone in vaccines, is you go, actually, if I produce that vaccine, I can save millions of lives. There's nothing else that you can be doing that can literally save millions of lives. And so it's everyone working in that industry is a good people. Of course, then there's the pharmaceutical industry, which is about trying to get those drugs to market. There's a massive process and billions of dollars in order to get there. So there's a lot of ones that are left on the chopping block. And so there's probably things that need to change in that in and around that. But it's
just to I guess build trust. There's I think there's anyway. But just going back to the FunTap, the transition, you would have had some moments in there where you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have made the switch. Can you take us into sort of some of those things? Like, I don't know how much you're comfortable sharing, but what were some of the causes of you to feel that way, and almost want to not pack it in, but feel as though maybe it's time to go back to my core sort of thing? And
there's definitely, so I always sort of hedged my bets a little bit as well. So even when I started up FunTap, it was back in the day, it wasn't even FunTap, but it started Invoice Finance. I was still doing half-time as a scientist. And so I'd be flying back over to Wellington as I sort of went, and then I had half-time where you're sort of setting up your business and doing all that. And I remember at the end of the first year, we actually made a profit, and now talking to business owners now, you go, man, you made a profit, you guys are doing well. I was looking at it, I was like, man, I I paid myself a meagre wage, and I think I made 10,000. I was like, why am I doing this? And I literally was going to pack it in. And then I think we went to a holiday. It might have been Australia or Thailand. And the crazy thing was, it just took some time out. And that's the biggest amount of business that came through at that time by being out. But it was just all the legwork that you'd done, like, just talking to people over the last year. And because it takes time. And so I managed to do by stepping out and thinking, oh, maybe I should leave this. That was when we did the most amount of business that we've done to date.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's still meagre in this sort of terms, but yeah, that was a big lesson to me, is actually just stick it out. Just keep on turning up, and good things will happen. And again, as long as you always feel like you're heading in the right direction, then it's just time. There's no real silver bullets, but you put enough effort in the right, same in that same direction. Yeah. And things over time.
Business is inputs and outputs, right?
Oh yeah.
If you have enough conversations, you'll have enough suitable candidates for your product. If you have enough suitable candidates for your product, some of them will buy.
Yep.
Or use your service, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what your business is. It could be finance, it could be e-commerce, it could be anything, right?
Yep.
And it is like, when people like say, oh, like you calendar always full, and it's like, yeah, it needs to be, it's like, it needs to be. I need to be having as many outward conversations as possible, because I'm opening doors that we might not see the benefit, or we might not see the fruits of that labor for 12, 18, 24 months. Like, we've had some partnerships that wouldn't deal with us in 2021, wouldn't deal with us in 22, nor 23, nor 24. We launch a different product in 25, and they're like, sign me up. It's like, sometimes your product's not right for them, or sometimes they're not at a stage in their business where they feel like they need you. You kick enough goals, you have enough case studies out there, you help enough people, and people rave about your business, and then eventually they come. But if you just give up and go, I'm never going to talk to them again, or you burn bridges along the way, just leave as many doors leave as many doors open as you possibly can, and eventually people will come.
Well, I don't see why you'd ever shut a door, for one. But even like, I guess your analogy about kicking goals is, it's not just like, because you'll keep on kicking goals, and half of them will be off target. But the thing is, the more goals you'll kick, the better you'll get as well. And so it's that learning cycle. So it's not only just turning up all the time, but you get better and better and better. And so someone went and asked me the other day, like, would you have started it again if you'd known everything that you needed to do? And if you told me everything that we would have had to have done when I started it, I go, there's no way we can do that. Like, you're crazy. You just had no idea, and how would you do it? But the thing is, of course, you do a little bit, and you get more resource and more time, and you learn a little bit more, so you do a little bit more. And then you go 10 years down the line, and you're at this point where you can't even really fathom where you were. So if you ever had to, if you knew all the work that was going to go in, but you can't fathom just how you get extra resource, extra people, like real experts who come in, and just sort of grow it, and it becomes more and more fun, and it becomes more and more enjoyable as you go. But I think it's got to get out and just keep on doing stuff, and then you'll learn, and you'll get better and more focused as you sort of go.
The accuracy, to use your analogy about goal kicking, the accuracy improves over time, and with the more repetitions, like the more no's you get in business, the better you get at trying to convince somebody to say yes.
But you got to put into practice though, don't you? Because that's 100%. The only way that you're going to go and find out. And so I firmly believe in the action. The one thing, like, because I worked in a few science organisations, or the sort of semi-government corporation kind of structures. And it was sometimes really depressing, because you're fighting the organisation to do what's best for the organisation, and so there'd be a lot of documents flying backwards and forwards, or talk, or navel gazing, when actually it's just best to just get out and talk to people, just go and do something. Because even if you fail, then you know that you fail and you move on. Whereas if you're just writing reports, you're just trying to create a house of cards internally, and if you never go out and test it, you don't know whether it's any good or not. But if you're forced to go out and just test it, then you've got to learn and go, well, that's not us. That didn't work. Let's now put our energies over here. So you're real keen to just actually just have action. Just try something. Yeah.
And then, we spoke about the times where you thought maybe it's not for you, but when was the moment it clicked for you and you thought, I definitely made the right call, and now, like, you've had some amazing growth in the business. Let's talk into the more positive side now.
One was definitely then when you're actually sort of sitting there and going, almost ready to give it up, and you realise, oh no, wait a minute, actually, because I've done that, now I can see these little green shoots, and off you go. Another piece was just before COVID, feeling pretty good, like we'd done pretty well. This is still actually, at that stage, it was just me, and it was actually my sister-in-law who worked for me as well. And we were really starting to get some green shoots. We'd just gone into Australia, and then of course COVID hit, and our revenue dropped 82% overnight. And the good thing about that though is because we were so small, we had so little fixed costs, we were able to weather it out, and off you go. But yes, I was feeling really good at that stage and go, man, we've made it. And then COVID came along to put a dampener on that. And then it hasn't really been sort of any like definitive moment, or there's these little bits which sort of come along where as you're building out the team and you're getting, so it's been sort of a jack of all trades. Like I'll give a go at anything, and you sort of so you have to understand a little bit, and you get a few, sort of score a few goals, but I'm not an expert at any of them, and so it's been a really satisfying thing bringing in experts into each one of these. So like Shane, our head of growth, like sales, sales a hell of a lot better than me. And then you go and see it, and he goes off and he does that. And you go, oh wow, that's pretty good actually. Yeah. And then you bring in other people like Jess, our head of product. I've been doing all that sort of things. I've cobbled together stuff. I can do it adequately, and then she comes in and she knows what she's doing and she does it properly. And so that's been just these little bits has been really satisfying. That's the sort of like, oh look, we're making it because. We're building out that team. We've got some really clever people, and you can just start seeing that flywheel just start spinning and spinning just faster and faster. And so that's been pretty cool. So it hasn't been like from that, except for those 2 points. It's been just this sort of gradual. I don't know, just
I think that's
feeling.
I think that's better though. I think you see some businesses that they explode, and then they haven't got the systems, the procedures, the foundations aren't right.
Yeah.
And so when they can't really handle the growth properly, and they don't appreciate it, they just think because to them it came really easy.
Yeah.
Whereas like we in our business and you was the same. Like we had pretty severe COVID lockdowns, right? So we're the same. I started the business in the first round of COVID, and then the second round of COVID was very, very disruptive to our business. And thankfully, we were in a position where we were growing so fast at the time that it pretty much didn't lead to negative growth. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it just really just stunted the growth. So we went flat for a number of months. But that was hard because we just geared up for the growth that we were expecting. And then you're responsible for all these people, and you've got to make sure that you're making them feel comfortable, and they've got families and mouths to feed and mortgages to pay and rent.
It's huge responsibility that you just don't even really consider until you're sitting in that seat when you do have all that responsibility. And it keeps you up at night if things aren't going well. Or even that flat. We've had flat when you geared up for growth, and that's difficult. That's real difficult because it's not going the same way that you actually planned it was going to go.
And I think those moments of like severe adversity where you're like, I don't know if we're going to survive this, are actually what teach you the resilience and the discipline, and then also give you the perspective to appreciate when times are good. Because you're like, I know that another, whatever it is, pandemic, like Brisbane just had, Queensland just had the cyclone and stuff like that. It's disruptive to all the businesses there. Like some people lost everything. Some people it's going to be 6, 12, 18 months before they can rebuild their lives, So you can't take things for granted is what I'm saying, because just when you feel like things are going easy and you're playing on easy mode in business, just know that if you're not appreciating that, and if you're not building some reserves and contingencies, like when things do get more tricky, or a new competitor comes in the market, or AI disrupts your industry or whatever, if you're not prepared for those outcomes, you're going to be exposed.
I think for us, because we grew slowly to start with, and so come at it from invoice finance, going to say, let's take all the good of invoice finance, let's leave the bad, but specifically for small businesses. So this is a sector of the market that no one touches because it's unprofitable. And so the whole idea was to actually be able to make be sustainable off that. We went really slowly at the start because we've got a whole AI credit decisioning sort of process in the background. That means you need data. That means you need you need people to come on board. That means you need to test out this whole new system, this model that you got, and you don't know if the money's going to come back in. And so if we're going to like scale real fast, we could have just been scaling the problem. So it took a little while for all that sort of stuff to go. And because we had to go slow, it did mean that you had to put in place things as you sort of went along. You had a little bit of time to actually sort of grow and do that. And even like when COVID came along, like our revenue dropped massively, but it was the chance to go and review a whole lot of stuff as you needed. And so we were actually a stronger business for it. And we've had a few periods like, when the economy starts to change, everyone thinks like invoice finance, as soon as the economy goes down, well, oh, you guys will be fantastic because all these struggling businesses, but actually our client is a growing business. And so the economy goes down, we don't get as much business coming across, but that's actually the time to really sort of like look at ourselves and go, how can we do things better? So we might not get the same sort of revenue growth that we're looking at, but how can we actually go and do better and better and better? And it's all about positioning yourself, because there's going to be hard times, and it's being able to have an organisation that's just clever and can react to a bad thing. So we've even had times before where our marketing just went haywire for a bit. We got shut off, or we got hacked and got shut off Facebook and all this sort of side, and that was a very specific problem, and it took us too long to recognise it and too long to react to it. And so from that is actually going, well, we need to just be able to react to it better. We probably won't have that specific problem again because we've fixed that, but there will be another problem somewhere along the line, and we've got to be able to react to it quicker and better. And so it's just trying to create an organisation that is nimble, that's agile, that can weather that storm. And so that does mean having reserves and having good people. Yeah, and it's ideally you have an organisational culture that only makes mistakes once, the same mistake. They don't. Hopefully they don't repeat the same one and leave things. But there's so many businesses that don't even do any kind of risk planning or risk mapping or whatever. It's like if you're a business and you're not actually calculating the things that could be either at a catastrophic level, business ending, or more minor, like 5% revenue reduction, or disruptions to your culture and your team, or competitor poaching staff, or like if you're not looking at these things, I think you're ill prepared. It's really important. I think the biggest thing that it irks me actually is the biggest thing that's never on a risk register is opportunity cost. Oh yeah. And so that's a great one. We'll constantly look at risk, and so all these things about something bad happens to the business, and therefore we've got to react. We've got to be able to do it, and you absolutely do, because some of these shocks can send you out of business. So you've got to know that. But the thing that's going to slowly creep and mean that you're either a mediocre business or you slowly go out the back door is not doing anything. So because it's so much easier to just do nothing, and you might come up with an idea, and it's easy to say no because then no one got any egg on their face because nothing changed. But what you don't necessarily realise is that opportunity cost by not doing things, especially if you've now got a culture where you don't do things. And so that's something I'm always. I try to be really cognizant of, because if I think about us standing still, we're going to be going backwards. We won't know it. There's a saying that says if you're not growing, you're slowly dying. And I do believe that, because the market is, even if you're perfectly still and you're doing everything you've always done, the market is moving. Everything is orbiting around, whether it's the regulator or the consumer or SMEs. It's never in a steady state. I don't think you can ever be really complacent or happy with where you're at. Maybe you look to do more sort of fine tuning, and that's okay. At least you're still making improvements. That's fine. But I think if you just go, no, I'm happy with everything, I'm just gonna, go and play golf full time from now on. It's like, it'd be nice if you could, but it would be. Yeah. I do think you do need to put in the work. But also one of the big lessons that I learned was you can put in the work, but you keep on doing the same thing, and you've only got so many hours in the day, and you get to a point where you break. And so it's making sure that you're actually doing things smarter as well. And so one of the big lessons I had, like I've had a couple of times where I was just essentially almost broken, where you just keep on working more and more, brute forcing it more and more and more, and then you have to go and reduce your hours. And it's every time I've reduced my hours that you had to then prioritise, and you had to work out what was actually important. And therefore, and then the business took off. So by doing less, you actually end up doing the business went better. And then of course it will creep in, and you get more and more, and then you had to cut it down. So it's this sort of forcing function which does force you to do better all the time, rather than just doing the same thing. And if you want to grow, to try to grow by just increasing hours, increasing like brute forcing, throwing people at it. So that's, and unfortunately I've learned that lesson a few times. I'm sure I'll do it again.
So have I.
But it's definitely trying to do things smarter as you go along, not just trying to throw yourself at it all the time as well.
And the split between Australia and New Zealand, how big is each of them? Is it 60-40? Is it?
Yeah, so at the moment it's 70-30 in New Zealand and Australia. So we sort of double each year.
Is that meaning New Zealand 70%?
Yeah, sorry, New Zealand 70%. Yeah. So that's our main market. We've been in there for a while. We know it quite well. There are definitely differences, especially how we approach like the go-to-market in Australia is different. So, we've done it what we typically did do. So we knew that the markets were different, but we thought, well, we might as well just get in there, treat them like they're the same until we know otherwise. Yeah. And that's essentially what we did do. We've sort of, for a while now, we've stayed at that sort of 70-30, but it's also because we keep on growing New Zealand quite well. So we definitely, there's a big drive for Australia because it's a much bigger market. We do have really good product market fit in Australia, but it's just sort of, it's bringing in the resource to do it well. We're really hoping in this year, next couple of years, that'll start shooting up. But again, I can't ever complain. Because the Australian, we've doubled the Australian market, but we just doubled the New Zealand market as well. Yeah, so that's why it always stays at that same split.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, you can't really complain too much about it.
Yeah. And do you have any thoughts on what the future of the product looks like? What are the key enhancements that you're working on, or or is it at a point where it's now pretty mature and it's just tweaking it?
There's a lot of different products that we could potentially do, and I love it. I'm sort of an entrepreneur, so I go, what's the next new shiny thing? Very specifically, the strategy at the moment is to focus on this product and grow it into the market. What we do have is, in the background, we have a whole lot of things that a lot of customers probably wouldn't even see, but over time, so by the end of this year, we should have instant credit decisions, for example, so you can
amazing,
and potentially be pre-approved. So you wouldn't, because you don't pay any fee to us unless we actually give you money. But if you're a small business and you're sort of sitting there and you're planning about, what do I need in my back pocket for, either to grow or something's come along and sort of hit me and I need to be able to survive it. It's like having FunTap in your back pocket where you're pre-approved, but you haven't had to pay $1 for it, and you may never use us. But if you do need us, then it's there. But again, you don't want a big long process. You don't want to spend an hour finding out you're pre-approved. And so we're driving towards, and we should have it by the end of the year, where it's a 5-minute application and a 5-second credit decision, and that should be able to be thrown, and to be able to be thrown out to, accountants, for example. We've got, so you go, here's my Xero file, and just go, you're pre-approved, and so it sits there, may never use us, but you just know that it's sitting in the background. So there's a whole lot of innovations that we're doing in and around that side of things, or being able to pull all the data, being able to do the AI. Credit decisions, all these sort of things that actually make the product work a lot better, but it's still going to be, at the moment anyway, is focusing on that invoice finance product, which essentially is just cash when people need it. But then I don't know.
You guys do it a little bit differently to most. Traditional invoice finance companies, it's a really long process. They put the borrower through the ringer.
Yeah,
they ask for everything, and plus a blood sample. It's it's quite intrusive. It's quite long.
Yeah.
And then you obviously have the supplier on the other end that needs to pay into a different bank account, and some people don't like that part of it. But let's kind of, versus the traditional invoice finance model, what are the key points about? I mean, I know some of them, but for the listeners that probably don't know the product.
I guess what we have done is we've built the product for the time poor business owner. So it's your tradie out on the business, on the work site. They don't have time to be trying to faff around, trying to find finance. Really what we're able to do is we're able to give the money so they can sign up. Takes about 5 minutes to sign up. At the moment, the approval process, depending how complicated you've structured your business, so if it's a very simple structure, then we can get it done pretty quickly, and then should have money in your account pretty almost instantly. So you sign up, you link your accounting software, it drags through all your invoices. You can select the ones that you want to fund, and then we pay money into your bank account. One of the key differences with other invoice financiers is that your debtors would then pay into a different bank account, which means changing the bank account. So you've got to change it there if you want the money from them. You're going to pay the invoice financier whether you're using it or not. And then when you don't want to use it, you've got to go and change the bank account back. So we do away with all of that. And essentially what happens is that your debtor will pay yourself, and then we just direct debit you at that point as well. So when you get paid by your debtor, we'll go and direct debit you for the money that we've given you. And so it sounds really complicated, but basically it's just making sure that you've got money when you need it in your bank account. And then the repayment of that is repaid when your customer pays you.
Yeah.
So you don't have that issue, say when you get term loans, or you might be weekly repayments, or every 2 weeks you're repaying, which is out of step when you're getting repaid. So it can actually exacerbate your cash flow problem as well.
Yeah. Your story is also very unique, and I think people, like, if you didn't know the story of FunTap, and then you learn the story of FunTap, are you and your journey, are you more or less likely to deal with FunTap?
Yeah, I guess that's a good
I think
point.
100% more likely.
Yeah, so
Because you're creating a human element. Like, your background's quite unique, and so some people are going to connect with that and go, actually, this is a scientist that created this product.
Yeah.
So he's come at it from a very different angle. He's not a banker, and that's really how you'd probably want to position yourself. It's like, I'm not from the big banks.
Well, we
I'm
do
not
want to
from
position ourselves like that as well, because I think the thing is, you see all this it's the frustration of, well, it's just an acceptance that this is the way that you do it. When you come from the outside, just because you're ignorant, you go, well, why can't we do it like that? And then you just do it like that because that's what you hunt down. And then it was interesting as you get to know the industry a little bit more. Like sometimes you go, oh man, that's pretty sophisticated, and we've got to raise the bar here. Other times you're like, man, what we've built is actually industry leading, and we didn't even know it because we came at it from a different angle.
lens.
We just didn't know there were rules to be broken. We just went roughshod over the whole thing, especially when it came to like the AI credit decisioning sort of piece. We're just like, well, why can't we do that? It makes so much sense. And so we just went about and did it, and it worked. Where if you did it the other way, there'd be all these reasons because you're sitting on this legacy stuff. And so in some ways, like, there's definitely drawbacks by not being in the industry or not having that knowledge. But you can find good people who you can run alongside, who can give you that knowledge over time. But sometimes just that ignorance and just, well, why can't we do it? Just works brilliantly. But you don't know any of these things as you go through it. It's only when you're looking back and you're probably building your own house of cards. You're going, well, here we go.
I think that's why, like, people when you can lean into that, like from your perspective, I think it makes sense to lean into the fact that you're not from the banking industry and you haven't worked for the Big Four, and the reason you've created this product is because of XYZ reason, because you've just seen the lack of service and how many small businesses get left behind by these banks.
I think it's just passionate because you especially when you start, like, you're just a small business trying to get ahead, and of course when you first start up, everyone sort of wishes you well from the sidelines, but until you actually, once you show success, everyone jumps on board. But everyone's sort of sitting back waiting for you to fail and not necessarily, jumping in and helping, because I've seen so many like this. You can sort of see now there's a little bit of a weeding out sort of piece, but actually there's a bit of a ringer that you have to go through. Is there anything you can do to help those small businesses, especially just the good ones that are like they've got a great business, but it's just don't have that cash, just the cash to actually get it to work. And so being able to help those businesses, I mean, that's what is really satisfying to see, and we're actually trying to get some more metrics around that, is to actually go and show, actually by being able to have that cash when you need it, that actually enables our business to fly. So we had a quick look at.
Well, I think there's easy ways to do that, right? Like with because you're connected to their Xero, their financial system, accounting system. You could look at revenue pre and post funding, right?
So we have, and so anyone who's ever been funded by FunTap, regardless whether they're funded once or funded once or many times, over a 2-year period, they grew their revenue by 54%. So it's much higher.
I mean, that's
huge. And then the other one is, so we've gone back and had a look at things like debtor days as well. And so what really overdue invoices drop by 20% just by using us once. Because essentially people were able to go and get the cash they needed to just make sure that the wheels, the cogs of their machine kept on going. So profitable, but just didn't have the cash at the time to actually make sure that it actually sort of works.
What people don't understand is in a growing business, you create a cash flow vortex. It's sucking in money because your operating expenses increase, and you're paying them like daily, right? But you're not getting paid your invoices for sometimes 90 days, and some industries worse than that. And so your OPEX increases on day one, and you've got to run for 90 days and somehow survive. And so if your business is constantly in a state of growth, especially in the early days, it's literally a vortex. You're just always chasing your tail. And if somebody can just bring that cash flow forward for 3 months, it makes a huge difference. And
I think that's the other thing, is we're that sleep at night money. So we're not the be all and end all. You'll have your banking package, you'll have your asset finance and the like, but we're the sleep at night money. And even so we've got quite a lot of reviews now on both like the Zero Marketplace and Google and the like. And it's all like, you allow me to sleep at night. And that's really what it is, because again, they know it sort of all works together, but they just it hits Thursday and there's no cash in the bank because someone hasn't paid a bill that they were expecting on Wednesday, and then they've got to go and pay all their staff on like Thursday or Friday, and so that's the problem, is you can't not pay your staff. So you might have a really well-run, profitable business, but something outside of your control has just put a massive spanner in the works, and now all your focus is on that rather than actually running your business. And so I think it's coming at it from, we're really passionate about helping those sort of people so that they can do what they do best. But it's actually just making sure they've got that money to just keep it all going. We understand that as well. We've come up through that sort of whole piece, and it's the more headspace you have, so as you're able to sort of solve these problems, the more headspace you have to actually just solve, so you're not having to just spend a whole lot of time solving all these little problems around there. You can start growing your business. You can start looking out and going, and really sort of reaching for the next level. But if you're constantly on business as usual and constantly just fighting fires, you're just having to survive. So it's whatever we can do so that they're not just having to survive, they're actually sort of thriving as they go. And that's the exciting bit for us, especially as we start running these numbers. And even before you do the analysis, you have a bit of a guess. And we've been actually really surprised sometimes just how big a change some of these things have been. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing stat, 54%. That's insane. And I think a lot of business owners are scared to to take out debt in the business, blah, blah, blah. But in some cases, it's the best thing to do. Some people are more happy to dilute equity and bring in somebody with cash.
Yeah.
But then that has its own complexity as well, right? That there's different things. So there's right place, right time for debt and equity funding. But for me, if all you're doing is bringing forward your cash flow, you're not taking out a false amount of debt that you're not going to be able to service, right? You're just unlocking an invoice that's going to be outstanding for the next 30, 60, 90 days,
Well, I think that's a nice thing, because it is that, the repayment of that money is when your customer repays as well. So it's intricately tied with that. So you're not necessarily creating more of a cash flow problem.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing.
Well, some people dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper, right?
Yeah, and you've got to be careful with that. And I think what we do see is, we see a lot of people who are really good at their trade, really good at what they actually do. And it's just, I don't know, say you're a builder, you're out there building on the building site, and you're arranging your guys and you're getting materials and you're doing everything that you do. But then you've still got to run your books, and you've got to run your financial model behind it. And that's difficult, because a lot of people, they know how to build. They were apprentice builders, for example, and they do that eyes closed. But now you started your own business. You suddenly got to work out the books. No one's ever taught you how to do the books.
Yeah.
And so partly it's that sort of we're pretty passionate about being able to educate some people on just really so things that would make their business go a lot faster, better. But again, I understand they don't have the headspace. They're not going to sit down and do a 2-hour seminar with us. It's what some little tiny tidbit that can provide instant value, just so that they can get to that next level and the next level. And as long as you survive long enough, you're going to become a great business owner, because you've been around long enough that you learn all the lessons. But it's just making sure that you survive the next day. So being able to position them well as well.
Yeah. And so I think in terms of the sort of tradition of the business. I'm going to plant this with you now, so you have a little bit of time subconsciously to stew on it. Tradition of the podcast, sorry, I should say, is we're going to get you at the end of the show to do a 60-second pitch on why use FunTap. There's a lot of reasons we've already discussed, but I'm just going to let you stew on that for a little bit. The questions I want to ask are specifically about some industries that you can see that are probably doing a bit tougher at the moment. Like, which are the industries that you're seeing either here or across the ditch in New Zealand?
Yeah, I mean, across the board. I mean, so there's some industries that we don't touch, like retail, for example, or hospitality. We do have a few tourism, but again, generally not. You know, those ones that are cash-based businesses, they're definitely doing it tough. The ones that we're sort of seeing is the construction industry. That's because it sort of got to this, you know, the economy sort of going down. It seems like there's some really nice green shoots. There's a whole lot of contracts coming across the board. But it still takes time, you know, so for the architects to get their sort of side of things done, get everything locked in, and then it'll be maybe 3 to 6 months before these contracts really start coming through. And so you've geared your business to be at this level, and you know it's going to take off, but you still got to, you know, you're not quite there yet. But just general pain across the board. We've definitely seen there's been a lot more pain over since Christmas with our customers' debtors slow paying.
Yeah.
So just paying it slower and slower. And then, of course, that puts more and more cash flow stress onto the business. So we're
seeing the exact same thing.
Worse.
It doesn't matter which industry you're in, you know, even though we have probably fewer people that pay us than, say, you know, somebody in construction, because, you know, we have aggregators and we have people that owe us for like clawbacks and stuff like that, referrals and suppliers and people that pay us for software that they use from us. And we do have, you know, people, but we definitely see it, and it hurts because when they pay you slower, then it means that you don't have the cash to pay your people as fast as you'd like as well. Yeah, it
just keeps on kicking on. Yeah. And so that's the thing, and again, that's where we're sort of sitting there to hopefully like grease those wheels a bit more, because it's because there's a limit. You know, again, you can plan and you can do everything you can have the best practices, but sometimes you're still beholden to like another business or another person, or and there's sometimes you just can't do anything about that. And so it's trying to work out, well, how do I actually go around the problem? How do I actually still fix the problem, even if I can't move that piece there? But yeah, we definitely have seen a bit of pain, probably like definitely over the last sort of like 7, 8, 9 months. It's been quite difficult, but it's sort of, I think we definitely are at the trough. It is looking all a lot brighter, but it's not there yet. And it's that lag that's real difficult, like really difficult for people.
Yeah, it does look like there's been a bit of lag since the rate drop here in Australia.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were hoping that was going to be, myself included, that it was going to be enough to sort of, you know, tip the public sentiment. I think people are still cautious. There's a lot of stuff going on internationally and whatever else, but still wars raging and all that. So I think if we can come to, some peace deals in Russia, Ukraine, Palestine, Israel. If there can be some peace, and we can get some more rate drops, and like the sort of unemployment rates, all of that, they're all misleading, because a lot of the there's so many more jobs that were created that were just government non-producing jobs that get included in that. And I think there's if you speak to recruiters and you speak to founders, how many of them are hiring? There's not that many that are, so that's kind of a way that I gauge it, is like how many people are looking, to increase the size of their team at the moment. And that's kind of a good metric that I look at. But
it's been interesting because we've been going through big sort of hiring, because we've been growing, so we'll be hiring as we go. But we've been told over and over again that it's a great time to hire, and that's because there's a whole lot of people out in the market. And so we have found some incredibly good people, but that there's a lot of pain if there's a whole lot of people sort of sitting out in the market. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, it's around that certainty. So a whole lot of things like internationally, like at home in your backyard, it's all just around making sure there's that certainty. And as everything sort of economically starts to tick up, hopefully there's not those sort of rocks. But I think that is the whole thing, is actually being able to, no matter what's happening outside, is being able to roll with the punches and making sure you've got these, your organisation is something that can take a few knocks, and planning for that rainy day, or having those mechanisms in order to be able to make sure that you can get through to the next one. And that's I think so we were just doing like values, behaviours, all that sort of stuff, doing that sort of review around it. And it's all, for us, it's sustainable growth. So we double each year, which is sometimes we have to check ourselves because we're trying to reach budget, and we sometimes get it, sometimes don't, and you're like, damn it, we missed, but you still doubled.
Yeah.
And it's actually making sure that it's sustainable growth, especially being a financier. You don't need to go growth at all costs. Is making sure that growth is sustainable, so you're not like booming and then busting and booming and busting, or even worse.
A lot of businesses have struggled with that. Some of our lenders on our panel struggle with that. They come in and out of the market. Brokers hate it because they like to have consistency about who they're dealing with, and it is frustrating, and it's hard. It takes each time they do it, time they boom and then bust. The next round where they try and boom, it takes them longer to build the trust.
Because that's the thing, it's trust and certainty, isn't it? Because you want to know. And again, the worst thing we could do is like we provide cash flow. If we don't have cash, what are we doing? You don't have anything there. But again, it's just being able to make sure that we're always in a position, and because bad times are going to come, but have come, and but it's making sure you position yourself so that you survive to the next day. And as long as you survive, you learn, and then you take all those learnings, you get better and better. But it's making sure it's really sustainable and not going all out. And so that's why we've actually come from we've bootstrapped it, and we've always been profitable from day one. And sometimes that has been, when I talked about opportunity costs, there is an opportunity cost in and around that, but it's been very purposeful because we can own our own destiny, and we can steer it where we can see where we should be steering it, rather than sort of being beholden or having to spend a whole lot of time trying to find money, rather than actually just building a better business. So everyone's got a different way, and again, I'm building my house of cards, so I go, wow, this worked for us, so this is the way. And there's some really good ones that go on a completely different path. But for me, it's always just making sure that we're always getting better, and we're always positioning ourselves really well, so that we can survive the hard knocks and then thrive when it's good.
Yeah, perfect. And just one quick bit of advice: you get somebody listening that thinking about starting their own business. Maybe it's not necessarily an invoice finance business is quite a niche thing, but somebody thinking about taking the leap, what's the best bit of advice that you've either received or could give somebody?
Yeah, I think the best bit of advice I'd give someone is just to go and do it. And so even on a small scale, so everyone's got the different risk appetite and the like as well. So like, for example, I went off half time, so I still had a half-time job. So I'm not like the sort of person who burned all the boats and then went as well. But just give it a go, because you'll learn. And if you fail on that one, as long as you're constantly learning, then you'll take all those learnings into the next one. But if you're always constantly thinking about the next big idea or but not doing it, there's going to be a real limited amount of learning. And then the only other thing would be to find people who've been there, done that. They might not have all the answers, and you'll have to find your own path. But it's going to be a lot easier, and just also probably a lot more fun if you can get those people on board. And everyone likes to tell their story, so just buy them a cup of coffee and they'll spill the guts and tell you exactly how to do it. Yeah,
I think having like a mentor or somebody you can sort of pick the brains of. Most people, like most good founders, will be generous with their time. Like if somebody ever asks me to catch up or whatever, here's my calendar link. Pick as long as you need. As long as you find an empty slot in there, then sweet. I think that's important, paying it forward. Like, I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I'll tell you what I did. That's all I can do. And then you can maybe take some inspiration from that. Or maybe you can take some learnings for like how not to do it. Because in some ways I'll tell you, I did it that way, but I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's not for the faint-hearted. Like, certainly like bootstrapping a fintech. Somebody asked me, what my suggestion would be to do, like regarding bootstrapping a fintech business, and I said my suggestion would be don't do it. That's my first suggestion. But if you are going to do it, just know that here's what you should expect. There will be many positions, many times where you're in the fetal position. There'll be many. It's not exactly a fun day out. That's for sure.
No, I don't know. I do sort of think back, and don't get me wrong. Like, there's probably about 2 months each year that I don't sleep at night. Like, I literally just don't sleep because I'm worried about something, like that worried that you're not sleeping at night. But the other time I wouldn't have it any other way because it's just like the journey is fun. Like,
yeah,
and it
for
is,
sure.
And I guess that's the other thing about like owning your own business is you got nowhere to hide. But it all sits on you. So it's it's big responsibility, but you get to do what you want. You get to have a crack. There's no one telling you not to. I mean, there's lots of people telling you not to, but you can ignore them because it's your business and you can go off and do it. And sometimes that's actually quite cool because you can just actually get to own it. But I think that's also a really important thing is that then the people say working for FunTap is they need to own it. Like they need to own it, but I can't be there micromanaging them or else they're going to hate it. They need to, and again, I've brought in experts to go do things because they do it far better than me. And so just clear the way and let them do their brilliant sort of side of things. But that's the fun piece of the journey, and it just gets better and better as you go. As you get bigger and better, you sort of open up more opportunities. You learn more. It's just more exciting as it keeps on going. So I'm just sort of, I don't know. I love the journey, but again, if you struck me in one of these 2 months where I'm not sleeping, I'll probably have a slightly different answer.
And look, I definitely always suggest people to go and start their own business, go and challenge themselves, go and get out of your comfort zone. It's just if you're asking. Like Elon Musk said this thing about, he's like, it's like eating glass and staring into the abyss. And like, I can't help but feel that might be the most accurate way to describe it.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better way to describe it. It's like, there are times where it is so good, it's euphoric and you can't believe that you even took this long to start your own business. And then there's times where you're like, fuck, it would be much easier if I was just, a 1 or 2 man operator and, you had very, like almost no fixed cost. Like when your fixed costs are hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, it's not easy, it's hard.
There's the thing, I think you can't discount, I don't know whether it's luck or happenstance, but even like, so when COVID hit, it probably was like, it was diabolical, but it probably hit at the best time because I had hardly any fixed costs.
Yeah.
If it hit now, I mean, we'd survive it, would be okay, but holy hell, it would be like, again, I'm not going to be sleeping because we've got all these fixed costs now, and it all works, but you still got to, there's a lot of responsibility. So I wouldn't have it any other way, but there is a toll, there's a cost, but then there's all the enjoyment that that satisfaction that you have coming through it. But it's a roller coaster.
And just as we wrap up, I hope you're ready for your 60-second pitch. So in a minute or less, give us the reasons why somebody should engage FunTap.
Yeah, I guess the reasons they're engaged FunTap. If you're a small business, we're really your sleep at night money. We're that money that's going to be allow you to take those opportunities as they come. The nice thing about us as well, so we are built specifically for small businesses, and so you will not pay us a cent unless you need us. So you can still come to us, be pre-approved. It's a very simple application, and again, it's only if you actually need it. If you need it, you can see exactly what the costs are. There's no sort of hidden cost. It's one fee, and so you can easily weigh up that cost benefit of actually it will cost me this much to use it, but I get this benefit here. Or I don't, it doesn't work out, so I won't need it. But then you won't be paying us anything either. So it's really just that sleep at night money for businesses, and just makes business more enjoyable because you're not having to worry about your money as much.
I do actually like that. I think that's a great saying, sleep at night money. Yeah. It's a very accurate description of what it does.
I'd love to say I came up with it, but it's actually come through from the reviews that we've got, and it just there's multiple reviews that just have that same sort of thing. So we've sort of latched onto it.
Yeah. That's actually great. You can get your reviews and put them in like what do they call it? Like a word map? Where a word cloud or whatever it is, where it kind of grabs the words that your clients are saying about you, and then.
Well, what we need to do now is, of course, we need to go AI, is to actually go and grab all this sort of side of things and just actually stick it all in, and then spit out, and then just see what it is. But it's so good because now you can take all these sentiments, and actually get the sort of broad brushstrokes across it. So there's some exciting things that you can do along there.
Mate, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Firstly, meeting you for the first time because
awesome.
I know this has been a little while coming, but I've loved dealing with your team. Claire is a superstar.
She's fantastic.
Be careful not to give her too big of a head. But she's been great.
No, she's awesome.
She's introduced me to a good book as well. So fantastic.
No, she's only got amazing things to say about you guys, and love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
I was always sort of that smartest in your class, but quite lazy.
Yeah.
So I was one of those really annoying people who'd just be able to smash out tests. You never had to really do any study. So all your friends hated you. There's a bit of a comeuppance to that because you do get a little bit complacent. You think that's value as you sort of go along. But anyway, I went down a path of science. Just absolutely loved it. Like I love, especially just discovering the world, how things work, all that sort of side of things. Had a very sort of black and white brain, right, wrong, all that sort of side, very simplistic. And I just loved getting to the heart of what makes things tick. So I ended up going to university. I went to Dunedin, so a lot of people wouldn't know that, but it's at so I lived at the very top of New Zealand, so up in Whangarei. And Dunedin was the furthest to get away and still be in New Zealand, so I went all the way down there. Great university town, and you sort of went there. It's a great science university, but really went there for the lifestyle. Just got into the science, ended up doing a PhD, so I did my PhD in microbiology and immunology. I remember sitting outside the registry building in my second year with my friend deciding what I was going to do, and ended up flipping a coin, and that's what it came up, so that's what it ended up doing. And I just thought, because then it was all on you. Like, you didn't have you weren't beholden on your boss thinking that you were really good, or if it all went pear-shaped, it went tits up, it was on you. If it went really well, it was on you. All the responsibility was sitting there. So it always just had this real itch to own a business. And a few different things happen in life, and so it's always those sort of things, the real tough times happen, and that it sort of forces you to move. And so we ended up moving to Nelson. That was the opportunity to get into finance, to own my own business. Finance, the only reason at that stage was because I was sitting there going, well, I could, we grew up relatively poor, so I wanted to make some money. And I thought, well, instead of having money for hours, there's only so many hours that you've got.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make money. And that was the simplicity of the thinking. How hard can it be?
It's surprising to me how little people know about the products and how many of them could have so many of their problems solved from the product. And it's actually, in most cases, a much more cost-effective way to fund or get funding for their business. And it's about unlocking your receivables ledger, essentially. If you've got, like any given point in time, we could have 400K on our receivables ledger, in our business. And it's like, that's a lot of money that people owe you, and that need to, and you've got people that you need to pay, and it's hard. Like, getting paid on time is one of the most important things in business, and it strains relationships.
Yep.
It's a difficult thing to manage cash flow, but a lot of people, when you explain that product or you say, oh, like, have you considered this or whatever, they have no idea the product exists. There's a saying that says, if you're not growing, you're slowly dying. And I do believe that, because the market is, even if you're perfectly still and you're doing everything you've always done, the market is moving.
Yeah.
Everything is orbiting around, whether it's the regulator or, the consumer or, SMEs. It's never in a steady state.